Okay. Good morning. Good morning all. Good morning to citizens and residents, well-wishers, partners, volunteers, all. It's another day that we should thank the Lord for, and we're very happy that we're alive and we can continue the development of our country. Today we will be looking at agriculture and food security. And of course, I will leave you in the capable hands of Dr. McIntyre, who will coordinate today's program. But just to say, as we've said many times since the hurricane, that agriculture is a critical component of our rebuilding efforts, and we need to ensure that we can start producing food and make food available not only to our domestic markets but also to our export markets in the region. A large part of our country depend on agriculture for their livelihoods, for their sustenance, for the income, and we need to ensure that all people can go back to work the quickest possible time. As the country knows, we've had a loan facility at the Aid Bank targeting farmers and fisher folk. We shall be reviewing that financing facility at the Aid Bank to allow it to be more robust and more nimble in its application, so that those funds can get into the farms and to the fields and into farmers as quickly as possible. The intention is to provide both advanced or enhanced technical assistance to farmers, planting material to farmers, assisting them with the payment of farm labor to accelerate their planting opportunities. The Ministry of Agriculture will speak today of a special initiative which we are launching today, effective today. I have signed off on it. I signed off on it yesterday. We have with us there Mr. Peter Dillon, who is the special advisor to the OECS on agricultural development, and he will be speaking to the initiative which he has proposed to the government and people of Dominica, and which we have graciously accepted. And they will speak to the more technical details of this. We have some seedlings at Portsmouth that will be distributed to farmers, and of course the PS will speak to the details of those seedlings, what type of seedlings. But the whole idea is to get farmers back in the field post-haste, to start with the short-term crops, the beans, different type of beans, green beans, red beans, pink beans, cabbages, lettuce, putting pumpkins and cucumbers, things that we can harvest in 2 to 6 weeks, and have our own produce here to assure ourselves of food security, because we need to ensure that we can have our local vegetables and fruits there. In respect to bananas and plantains, the harvesting of the banana and plantain suckers and getting the farmers on board to replant and so that in the next 7-8 months we can have plantains and bananas in the country, not only for domestic consumption but exports. Back in the field of yams and sweet potatoes, different varieties of sweet potatoes. There's a variety that one can harvest in 6 weeks. So we'll be sourcing a lot of the planting material, the cuttings, and make this available to farmers. Not only to commercial farmers, but subsistence farmers. Because we want to ensure that all of us, no matter how small our backyard is, that we can grow something in our backyard. Get the utensils, fill the soil, and plant some seedlings, and so that you yourself can have your own domestic access to some of the produce and so forth. We are in discussions with FAO, the CARICOM, the OECS, the European Union, and all of our regional partners, CARDI and others, and the hope is that very soon we shall convene a stakeholders consultation with all our partners around the table, specifically targeting agriculture and livestock and fisheries, and to see how we can work together with these regional and international agencies to assist us with implementing our strategy towards addressing our food security and agricultural production in our country. We'll be putting in place a national task force for the resurgence of agriculture in Dominica. And that national task force will have membership beyond our boundaries. So it is called national, but there'll be membership from the various agencies the OECS and CARICOM represented on this task force to monitor, to assess the implementation of the strategy, where the gaps are, where we need to fill the gaps, where we're falling short, where we need to improve, and so forth. We're giving directions to the Ministry of Agriculture to focus on the clearing of major access roads, farm roads, so that farmers can have access to their farms, assisting with the cutting of the logs on some of the critical farms, so the government will provide the farming community with that support. We'll also look at providing support to the farmers and transporting their produce to the pack houses where they need that particular support. We'll be giving instructions to the Ministry of Agriculture to get the abattoir back in operation as soon as possible, speak to the poultry farmers, speak to the pork farmers, what support do you need, let us import birds into the country, let's import feed into the country, let us help the construction of the infrastructure with farmers, with some of the funds that we have at the aid bank, so that we can get broilers into the country and have meat in the next couple of months, and certainly start back our egg program, because we have not been importing eggs in this country for many years, more than 25 years, and we need to advise ourselves and be advised what actions we need to take to get us to that point, because it will take the birds for 25 weeks before, I've been advised, before they start producing eggs, and therefore when does that 25-week start? And we need to start today, and to meet the poultry farmers, so that we can have an idea as to what kind of investments you need in this particular subsector to get it going. So we want, and now that the land is clear, there's no more clearing to this, simply just to harvest some of the planting material and plant back. Dashing and so forth in all of the communities in Bells and in the east. We need to get these things going. So agriculture for us, food security for us, is priority number one. And we will be articulating further some of the more specific interventions and the more specific support which we will provide to the farmers across the country. Both those who were existing farmers before and those who would like to get into agriculture now. And even from myself, from a personal note, I have started harvesting my own planting and banana suckers and replanting, and have guys clearing for me. We're putting a lot of 6 weeks potato into the soil, red beans, pink beans, green beans, cucumbers. So if every one of us was to do the same thing, come Christmas, come November, we would have lots of food here in the country, and minimize and reduce on the imports of these items into our country, because we must ensure that there's a balanced diet. That when we're having a meal, it cannot be an absence of vegetables and fruits. So in respect to the citrus, we are doing an assessment of the extent of the damage to the citrus program and so forth. Coconuts, we had a program through the OECS from the Mexican government in providing us with more resilient coconut seedlings. I think that was an opportunity for us to get these seedlings into the country. That some of them that are more susceptible to the red palm disease and the yellowing of the plants. So there are a number of very exciting initiatives that we have been studying and we're looking at, and we're well on our way towards having those things practicalize themselves on the fields in Dominica. But from the government standpoint, with the little resources that we have, we're prepared to provide the support to the farming community, so we can move as quickly as possible. With these few words, I will leave you in the most capable hands, or the more capable hands of Dr. McIntyre this morning. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Let me first of all say Good morning to all our listeners and of course to the press present here with us today. Today is a very important day, as mentioned by our Prime Minister, in terms of agriculture, which is really the backbone of this country. And we have with us here the PS of Agriculture, also Dr. Thomas, who is also the Chief Veterinary Officer, and Angus McIntyre, my brother as well too, our good friend here from the consultant from the OECS we met yesterday. And what we want to do today is to really focus on agriculture and government plans in terms of how we can revamp this country. As you know, and as most of you would have seen, Dominica was devastated by Hurricane Maria, and of course we have to bring this country back. Right now we are highly dependent on the packaged foods, the tin stuff. We're even getting water in Dominica now. That's something that we have not seen for a very long time, but that's so important for us as well too. So we want to take this country back to where it was, because we depend on agriculture, both from our food security point of view and also from the point of view of our exports. We'll tackle today in 3 different ways. We have the PS of Agriculture, who give an overview of the plans of the Ministry of Agriculture, and also we have Dr. Thomas, who will introduce the livestock component of it, animal proteins, and of course the PS can also elaborate more on the fisheries aspect of it. And Angus, my brother, will speak about plantains and bananas, you know, in terms of moving forward. But what I want to say as well too, before we introduce this topic, is the fact that yes, Maria struck us, and yes, it was a category 5, and I've never felt one or experienced one in my life, but it certainly was not a joke at all. But there are opportunities that we have to realize from Maria. And there's quite a bit of soil around the area that has been washed to the close to the roads. I would like us, as much as possible, those of us listening, to let's conserve and save some of that soil in areas where we have serious erosion. We can take it back and use it for leveling lands. Lands that you may have had before, of course not creating any problems on your banks and your edges of your land. But don't be afraid to use some of that soil and use the machines that are on island right now to level up areas to help us in terms of planting our crops. That is one we have to make sure we use a lot to. Another thing we should be mindful of is we have quite a bit of land clearing done by Maria for us. The country is totally bare, if you want to call it that way. Some of our forestries will shoot back again and they will grow, but let's use the opportunity of land clearing which has taken place rapidly and in a massive manner. What I mean by that is the soil is exposed once again, and those of us who are young enough and those of us who are old enough to have experienced Hurricane David, is a similar sort of scenario is taking place here. And it took David about 30-something years to get back that sort of secondary forest growth and the primary forest growth of those who survive. So we should use the land clearing by Hurricane Maria as something positive for us. Now, if we can get into planting most of the crops, using it, you know, we look at it from the short term, the medium term, and the long term. We got to plant them back. What I want to advise against as well too, and I want to advise against that strongly, is let's go about pruning our trees. But let's not kill trees right now, because we really don't have that cover in terms of absorption of heat, which is affecting us here right now. Now, what I'd like to do now is introduce the PS of Agriculture. First, to give an overview as to where we're going in agriculture. I'll speak of some of the plans of the Ministry of Agriculture, and I'll coordinate it. Dr. Thomas will introduce the livestock aspect of it. And of course, we'll be taking questions from you. Anyone who has questions, feel free to ask us questions. We are quite capable. Our consultant from the OECS is here as well too, and Angus. So we'll start with the PS of Agriculture, Mr. Gies first.
Thank you very much, Dr. McIntyre. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to just probably reiterate what is very obvious to us now. The agricultural sector in Dominica has been dealt a very heavy blow. We are down, but we are not out. And then if you are down, there is no other way to go but up. So therefore, we are gearing ourselves to moving upwards as far as agriculture is concerned. In the very immediate term, immediately, we are seeking to restore the food base. So we have embarked on a program called Grow to Eat. That's what the Division of Agriculture termed the program that we are embarking on right now. is grow to eat. So we eat what we grow and we grow what we eat, immediate effect. And then as a result, we recognize that very soon that if we do not take action now, we will have deficiency in vegetables or vitamins and some of the nutrients that our people need as a daily dietary requirements. And in terms of the relief that we are getting, most of the foods are rice, flour, and sugar are the basics. And then these are devoid of vitamins, minerals, and other essential nutrients that the body requires. Now, I noticed there's some of our farmers who had produce in the ground. They are selling dashin, they are selling yams, they are selling plantain and bananas on the roadside. You can see them. I saw cabbage this morning and I saw some celery this morning, but very soon some of this will be in short supply. So we are moving ahead in immediate effect to be able to establish vegetable crops on the ground and short-term crops that can be ready between 6 weeks and 3 months. So come Christmas time, our market should be very healthy with vegetables for our people. So this is a short-term strategy. We have seeds on island, and I can say that as of Monday, we'll be able to get seeds to several farming communities. We're encouraging persons with backyard gardens to please get involved with the Grow to Eat food program. There are several persons who have been doing that, and I know there are some persons who have already cleared their land and they're awaiting seeds to plant. Some farmers also have cut back some of their banana fields, and then they are gearing up for the suckers to grow, to plant, to be able to cultivate bananas. So the immediate strategy is to grow short-term crops like sweet potatoes, corn. We have identified 25 such crops that we can get into right away. And we want our farmers to come forward. Our farmers are very resilient persons. We know that farming is their livelihood, and then therefore they are ready to move. So we are the Division of Agriculture. We have suffered a lot of losses as well. Our main office is presently seriously compromised. Our agricultural stations are also severely compromised, but that is not keeping us back. Agriculture is actually done outside of these structures, so we are ready. Our staff is ready and have been ready for the last couple of weeks. We have placed on order, or at least the invoices for the white potatoes. White potato is a 3-month crop, and we are hoping we'll be able to get that done. And the farmers are ready. Farmers who were preparing before the hurricane. We want to urge you to continue your preparations. We are planning on sending teams of persons to help farmers clear their fields where there is debris, galvanized, and other stuff like this as obstructions. We recognize that for the tillage of the soil, we may have some challenges if there are rocks and wood and so on, but this can be easily removed. Some of our tillers were compromised, they got wet, and so our mechanics are working on them so we can assist farmers with tilling the soil for us to be able to put in the white potatoes. So that is the immediate strategy. For the medium to long term, we are doing like dashin, yams, cassava, and for the longer term strategy, or tree crops, and banana is always in the mix. Someone will speak to bananas in a while, so that we'll be able to re-establish the agricultural sector in quick time. We know that our soils were severely eroded, and we have put mechanisms in place. In fact, we do have fertilizer ready for the banana farmers. I have to cross-check and see whether the storm didn't wash away what we had for root crop farmers, so that we'll be able to provide this fertilizer. We also have another source of organic fertilizer from Martinique that we are going to speed up our program to be able to provide this organic matter that has been washed away from the soil to be able to assist our farmers. Based on information I have from our soil scientist, it says that if we use this organic matter on the soil, it is able to absorb the fertilizer better than to put it on this hard pan that now exists as a result of severe erosion of the soil. In terms of forestry, as you may have noticed, the land is severely denuded, so to speak, as a result of this hurricane. So we have some severe challenges on our hands. And then I have been speaking to our foresters, and then the idea is that we are going to find wherever we can get tree seedlings for reforestation immediately. We foresee that if we get a drought in 2018, or the dry season in 2018, we'll have some serious problems. So we are moving quickly on these matters to be able to do some forest management and to be able to get our forest and to plant trees along our watersheds, because the watersheds now are totally exposed, and then we need to be able to secure our water resources so that our country will continue to be the land that of many waters as we know it. In the area of fisheries, the fisheries building, Roseau Fisheries Complex, was totally demolished, roof caved in, and in fact the Compton Works engineers have declared the building uninhabitable. So this is something that we are working on. However, we have been working with the fishermen, providing fuel in some cases, and they have gone out fishing and they are catching fish. And this is one of the areas after any disaster that bounces back very quickly. As long as they have a boat and an engine, they can go catch fish and provide fish protein for our people. So this is happening as we speak, but not on the scale that we would like, because a lot of the fishermen have lost their fishing gear and they have lost boats and engines as well. But there is still a remnant that is fishing now, and they are landing fish, and then this is very good. So in the area of Marigot and Portsmouth, the fisheries complexes were not severely compromised, so these areas can also operate. Marigot is one of our largest fish producing areas, and then we expect that the protein, the animal fish protein security side is not severely compromised. So this is the strategy that we have. It is called Grow to Eat, and we are encouraging everyone with a backyard garden, every farmer, and also we want to encourage the farmers. Please, some of the crops that you do have still in the ground that survive. There's a lot of dashing, a lot of yam, because it is underground. The hurricane could not reach it. However, the top part of it may have been compromised. That we know that some of our farmers have customers overseas, but at this time we are in a crisis situation, and then we would like our farmers to make available food, root crops, make it available to our local people before we decide to send it overseas. So, as I said, we are very confident that we will be able to rise up quickly after the situation that now exists. We want to get out from under relief program that is essential now, but then when it is gone, we'll be able to stand on our feet again, and we'll be able to feed our people, and also, I dare say, export in not too very distant future. Thank you.
Thank you, PS, for the introduction of the plan for the Ministry of Agriculture. And of course, some important points here from the point of view of the government, where we're going to look at the short, medium, and the long term. And the aim here is to provide that sort of food security for people in Dominica. And of course, I want to make it clear, based on what the Prime Minister said initially, where we want to look at the funding mechanisms for that. And I want to urge our farmers out there to think positive. I know I know you have suffered a serious blow, especially your banana and plantain farmers, but I want to assure you that your government will provide the necessary means and look at new opportunities that you can benefit from. In terms of the even with the long-term crops, we have to look at introduction of new varieties, more tolerant and resistant varieties, and also look at new dynamics in agriculture. We're not going to just stick to the same style of agriculture. We'll maintain our culture, of course, but we want to introduce, based on the opportunity that has been presented to us, new varieties as well too. Something I want us to pay attention to, even from the forestry point of view, is if you look at the Botanical Gardens, which is one of the only ones in the region in terms of its size, and we have kept it together well, is the fact that most of our legume type forest trees, like say the salmon tree, which has sort of a mat type root and not a tap root, that most of them toppled over with a category 5. So even with the rebuilding of the botanical gardens as well as our forestry plots, we want to pay more attention to taproot type of plants, because the mat root, prop root type of plants, they cannot stand the category 5, and we cannot afford to be every 30 years, short lifespan of say 70, 310. If we have to live through 2 of them, we cannot afford to be replanting these plants every year and maintain the beauty of this island. So we have to introduce, more resistant varieties, more tolerant varieties, and varieties that are, better suited for our type of conditions here, given climate change and given what's coming for us. So that's just to highlight a little bit and to expound on it. I'll call now Dr. Thomas, who is going to introduce the livestock component in terms of animal protein security, and our plans are moving forward.
A pleasant good morning to all. The livestock subsector suffered significantly as well. Many of the infrastructure, the structures that are built to house the animals were actually destroyed. I speak primarily of the poultry sector, subsector, the poultry, both meat, that is broiler meat, as well as eggs, and also your pigs and your rabbits and the small ruminants. So the ministry in its effort, or the government of Dominica in its effort to rebuild and provide protein security, will be focusing on broiler production. Broiler production being a 6-week program. So we have begun our work where we have been evaluating the structures that were damaged, how many structures were actually damaged, in an effort to evaluate at what rate we can actually, or what intervention that we can make in the short term to get that subsector going. The national abattoir itself was affected. There was some damage to the infrastructure, but nothing that will limit our ability to process meat in the short term. So our first order of business was to evaluate the structures on the ground to find out which or how many of them have been affected, and so as to determine at what level we can go in. So our officers are actually out now starting to work on that. As it relates to the layer subsector, as you know, Dominica has been self-sufficient in eggs for the last 45 plus years. We have recognized that we have suffered significantly in that area. Many of the structures have been damaged. We in the ministry, in terms of its intervention, would seek to procure point of lay birds. We're talking about birds 4.5 to 5 months that we can bring in, so that within the next, say, a month to 2 months after procurement or an establishment, that we can have eggs for the Christmas in particular. Because, I mean, we have suffered, but we want to make sure that we have protein that the population can have access to. We will also look at working with our small ruminants. We know that we have suffered as well in some of the structures. There's limited foliage to feed them, but we have been in discussion with the feed suppliers. We know for sure that there are at least 4 containers of feed on the pot. We are now trying to ascertain what types of feed are there, so that we can go back to the farmers and to get them to go and procure that feed, so that they can get back into production. So we look at rebuilding the small ruminant subsector as well. Rabbits being an animal that again multiplies very quickly and very high quality protein. So we'll work with these rabbit farmers, try to get them back into production as well. The pig subsector suffered as well. We saw many structures that were demolished without roofs. So we are working with some of the farmers, trying to get tarpaulins, some kind of makeshift cover on those and on those pens, so that the pigs can go back into production, or the pig farmers can go into pig production as well. So our plan is basically to bring eggs back, poultry meat, small ruminants, rabbits, and the pork sector back together. We really believe that it's an opportunity, as Dr. McIntyre highlighted, that there are opportunities, and we really believe that the broiler meat sector, the egg sector, we believe in rebuilding and rebuilding better. And we think that these are some resilient areas and short-term measures that we can get in to get the people consuming protein, locally produced protein. We must not forget that agriculture, is a pillar in making Dominica or climate adaptable, and probably one of the best in the region and probably the world. So with these few words, I would like to end my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas, for your contribution towards livestock development in Dominica. And just to highlight a few things which we must understand that he made here that is of note. He mentioned the point of lay birds. If we had to depend on bringing in baby chicks here, it'll take a layer baby chick 18 to 22 weeks before it can produce an egg for you. So at this stage, given our present crisis here in terms of agriculture and damage to our livestock industry, we must bring in point of lay birds. And what he meant by that was the birds are anywhere between 4.5 months to 4.5 to 5 months of age. So once we get our buildings moving or renovate them, we can get the birds in there. And a critical point that was made there, we have not imported eggs in Dominica over 45 years. And that's serious sufficiency. And we want to get back to that fast. Something we want to guard against too is the introduction of foreign species here that come from countries that may have diseases. For example, we have a banana industry here that we're trying to revamp. I would guard against bringing in any sort of banana, pats and hands of bananas, what do you want to call it, or ripe bananas from South America. Because there are certain diseases that they have here that are endemic to them that we don't have in Dominica. And with our efforts as government to introduce and rebuild our banana and plantain industry, we have been struck with black sigatoka. We don't want another one that can be even more devastating. So with these few words, again, I would like to introduce now Angus McIntyre to talk on the banana and plantain sector and the rebuilding of it.
Okay, good morning to everybody, and yeah, thank you for the opportunity to shed some light on bananas and plantain. As we would realize, bananas and plantain, like all other areas, was struck a heavy blow. We basically suffered roughly about 100% damage in bananas and plantain. And when I talk about bananas, you may hear me use the word bananas, but I refer to bananas and plantains, interchangeably. What we see, I've had the opportunity to visit a few plots since Maria, and what we have seen is that the suckers are rapidly shooting. So around every banana plant that have either toppled or snapped, you would see roughly 4 or 5, number of suckers shooting. The idea there, or before I go on to that, the damage you suffered is either through toppling and snapping. Toppling is when the complete comb gets disrupted from the soil. Snapping is when the pseudostem breaks. If your banana toppled, it could indicate, the good opportunity to indicate whether you had a root problem, nematode or borers. In any case, you would not have thrown down every banana. Okay, so with the suckers you see around the banana plants, the advice to farmers would be to, you need to select a few of the suckers. Prior to Mario, we were doing basically a one follower setting. But farmers need now to select the strong suckers, and banana farmers would have had that experience and technical knowledge as to select the strongest sucker. These suckers, selecting the suckers. Now, what you observe again, with the destruction of all the banana plants or the canopy, there's a lot of light into the field. And then you're going to get a rapid growth of weeds. So we need to take on weed control. You don't want the weeds to be competing with these young suckers you have selected. So we need to do some forms of weed control, the trashing and sanitation of the plots. Okay, so having selected the suckers, care for the suckers, I should inform you that the ministry, our fertilizer stores, where we stored for banana fertilizer, it was not damaged. So we have an island, a variety of fertilizers that we definitely going to assist the banana farmers with to basically feed the suckers, both banana and plantain farmers. I should also mention, so that's fertilizer. Prior to Maria, we were in a program where we were just getting ready to export bananas, and we were actually importing consecutive batches of tissue culture plants, you know, from a CIRAD-owned laboratory in France, named Vitropic. We had about 15,000 plants on island at the Portsmouth Agricultural Station. From my visit to there, we have lost the majority because actually through flooding, the river actually passed through these plants. The greenhouse which housed them totally collapsed. So my estimation of yesterday, final check, we probably have about just under 1,000 plants left. So we don't have plants on island readily we could distribute. However, farmers can also use their suckers, because I mentioned about desuckering to 1 or 2 suckers. So farmers can also use some of the suckers from the regrowth, the suckers that I'm shooting now. Prior to Maria, we had some interaction or some communication with our laboratory, tissue culture laboratory in France. And they were about sending us 40,000 plants. And, you know, with the wisdom and our conditions here, we advise them to delay these plants. So we have a batch of 40,000 plants that are delayed in France. And once we can get our greenhouse operational, it's up to us. We can get them in the island, I mean, as soon as possible. So we have 40,000 plants on island. So as I mentioned about the fertilizer available, we'll be assisting with that. Another challenge basically is black sigatoka. We were basically in the process of controlling black sigatoka. We were making some improvements. So that is ensure the farmers, our store where we stored all our oils, our spray oils and our fungicides are intact. So we have these pesticides on oil on island that will be very soon getting into, you know, when the suckers have enough leaves, we need to start controlling the sigatoka. So we have these pesticides on island. Obviously, we won't have everything. So in terms of nematicides and some of the materials we need, we'll have to do a rapid importation of some of them. Okay. So basically, yeah, these are just a few I want to say on bananas and plantain. I think we have it under control, so it's just to pursue and execute as time goes by, you know? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre, for your remarks on government plans for the banana and plantain subsector. And of note, it's important to note here that we still were able to save our stock in terms of the agrochemicals and the oils, the fungicides, and of course our fertilizers weren't damaged at all. So that is a major improvement in terms of how we look at things. And of course, I'm happy to hear that you'll actually delayed the shipment of the banana plantlets into Dominica, given, I guess, the history and experience of hurricanes and not taking them into the hurricane season. As you know, the pseudo stems, which are like, they call them fall stems, they're very highly susceptible to winds, and banana and plantains will always be, you know, one of the first ones to fall during a hurricane. So I'm really happy for that. And the plan of our program, as we have mentioned, is to hit the ball rolling. Mr. McIntyre mentioned the fact that we're just about to get back into the UK market. So we've been struck a blow and, you know, placed back some time again. So, but that's not going to keep us back. He urged us to use our suckers. And the suckers are much bigger than the plantlets. Let's desucker properly, follow the techniques. And most of our banana farmers in Dominica, they are quite knowledgeable and skilled in terms of how we go about replanting. I am also hoping, but that's just me hoping this time, that Maria blow away most of the black sigatoka, but that's just wishful thinking for now. So with these few words, I'd like to introduce our OECS consultant who will talk a little bit on some of the programs that we can help out with.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to allow us to come in and support the people of Dominica at a time of this type of crisis. It gives me great confidence to hear the strength of the direction expressed by the Minister and the PS and others. It is so easy in times like this I've been in many situations like this. It's very easy. It's very common to walk in and just see kind of a malaise and people still in crisis and standing there not knowing what to do. I need to acknowledge the support of CARDI and FAO in the program and everything we're doing. My role is to try and help support the ministry and the people of Dominica in the short-term strategy. I arrived in Dominica yesterday, and I was fortunate enough to eat lunch and dinner. I was fortunate to have a meal of corned beef and pasta, and I felt fortunate to actually do that. What brought everything very, very real to me at that point was what was on my plate and what was not on my plate. There was no vegetables, and it hit me very hard, as it always does in these situations, that we have nothing here. We have whatever we have. The vegetables that we have is from before the hurricane, and we have to start again. Our role is to try and help to give a jump start. We're here. The Minister and the Ministry and the PM has allocated the use of part of the citrus facility behind the Botanical Gardens to start a new seedling unit. My role is to start planting seeds today. So, as the Minister said, we need to have food, and the food will not come unless we plant the seeds and plant the seedlings. The scope of the work that the Minister and the Ministry have is enormous. I come in with a very direct mandate and a very direct role, and it is to start a seedling facility today, and to, by the end of next week, to have 100,000 seedlings in trays that will be watered, so that in 3 to 4 weeks' time we will have seedlings available for farmers, for backyard gardens, for anybody who wants to plant. If I can echo what the Minister and the PM said, that the biggest contribution, we make a contribution that is very immediate and will be finished. The first roll will be finished in the next couple of weeks. The biggest contribution is for everybody who has access to their own garden, whether it's the size of their bed or it's 30 acres, to get out there and to cultivate their land, and in 3 weeks' time to have the ability to put plants in the ground, so that we are growing our own food. And the thing, when I was reading up about the statistics about Dominica, the biggest thing that hit me was that for the whole of the OECS, Dominica had the smallest vegetable food import bill for the whole of the OECS. Now, it is my role is to try and provide the seedlings to allow Dominica to get back to that stage. So again, I thank you for allowing us to come in. I thank you for any support that we can give. We are happy to give, and again, we're privileged to be able to come in and help you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to recap before we open up for some questions, I'm sure there are quite a few questions here. Just to recap, what we're trying to do in the Ministry of Agriculture is to look at our assets, what we were able to salvage. So once we are sure as to what we have in possession still, and I refer to assets in terms of the Forestry Division, the Fisheries Division, the Livestock Division, and of course the General Crop Division, including plant quarantine, plant protection, and every aspect of agriculture, our stations and whatnot. Once we have assured ourselves that we have so much left, then our next aim now is to build on it. Of course, for Dominica, we always look at it from the point of view of our fish protein, our livestock protein, and our plant protein, and of course our staples and our carbohydrates, vegetables, and everything to go with that. The main aim of government is first to satisfy the local needs and to look at our food security. I pride myself, and we pride ourselves on being, largely food security based country, and we want to take it back to that. As I mentioned again too, I want to make sure we understand the importance of the land clearing, the opportunity that exists. The land clearing has been done already naturally with devastation, of course. We have to look at the positive side of it. We know what we went through with Maria. There's no need going back. We were all here. We felt it. We know what's going on. I want to look at what is left in terms of Maria's left us quite a bit of land clearing and open up a lot of land for us. It'll take us a while before you have that sort of regrowth to cover the soil back. As was mentioned, weed control, Mr. McKenna mentioned that in terms of the banana industry and the planting industry and all other aspects of our crops. We're going to have to look at weed control. At the same time, we don't want to introduce too many of these agrochemicals in our soils. We want to look at best practices. We want to look at disease control. We want to look at resistant varieties, tolerant varieties. We don't want to introduce anything into this country because it'll be more of a problem for us. So we want to keep our agriculture as it is. So we'll continue to update you as we move forward. Of course, the aim is to look at tropical varieties for vegetables. We don't want anybody coming in here. I'm not talking about the consultant at all, because these are folks working in the OECS. I'm talking about folks who may ask us, do you want seeds? Yes, we want seeds, but we don't want temperate region seeds. We want tropical varieties, and we need resistant and tolerant varieties, okay? That's critical for us, because I don't want our farmers to go ahead planting seeds that are brought into the island by their friends. I'm not talking about by experts. And we're going to plant these vegetables, and then in about, say, 2 weeks after, we know these vegetables, they're all succumbing and they're dying. It's a waste of time for us. So we want to look at tolerant and resistant varieties that can adapt to our conditions. Here, of course, there's going to be a lot more sun, so we have to look at these varieties. So all in all, this is what we have for you here today on agriculture. We'll continue to, inform the nation and the world as to our needs. We want to look at the small implements that we can use in our soils to help us to till the soil. And I want to, before I end the formal aspect of the discussion here today, I want to urge every single Dominican who is still in Dominica, and there are a lot of us here, and there are a lot of serious persons here, and be it that you're a farmer or a non-farmer, plant a seed today and nurture that seed. We'll need to plant. We need our vegetables. We need something. So if all of us can just dry ourselves from Maria and dust up the dust that is left behind, and let's start planting today. Plant something, plant. I'm planting today as I speak, as my intention. I was lucky to have saved some of the plantlets, seedlings I had there, and I took time off under the terrible conditions of no water. I would take a little bucket bath, but I made sure I gave the plant some water. So I have some seedlings they are a bit battered, but we'll nurture them and we'll be able to get something very soon. So I urge every single Dominican to plant something today. And those of us who have a chicken around, a pig around, a this around, don't keep them in close proximity to you, because there's a competition right now for between animal and man. So we want to make sure we don't spread diseases, of course, and whatnot. And I urge folks here in terms of the indiscriminate dumping. This morning I went to the dump with a load of garbage. And the reason why I went to the dump with a load of garbage, you swear I was working for the solid waste. I had a load of garbage well tied heading to the dump. I went to the dump this morning, I dumped all the garbage, because I'm trying to take away rats from my area. Because I also have a dog, and I don't want the rats to come in here to feed on the dog's food, and then urinate on it, and then we're going to have leptospirosis right in the yard here. Which is going to be a problem for the human beings in the area, because more and more we have clustered together, sheltering together because of the damage done to the housing stock of Dominica. So you have people living more in a communal style. So let's try to avoid introducing any diseases which we can really prevent if we control. The first stage of what's happening right now is a lot of this stuff is coming on in terms of the dry goods, the food, what's coming into Dominica, but we have to make sure we dispose of it properly such that we don't create a problem that can come back and hit us from a disease point of view. So this is basically what I want to share here. There's a lot we can say, but this morning is not about this. We have to go out there and continue rebuilding this country, and I don't want to spend all the time here talking. But I think it was good information. So we'll close here, and of course we'll be open for any question whatsoever you may have.
Good morning. My name is Kamisha Dominic from CBN4. Sure. I have some questions for the PS. I heard the Prime Minister say that he will be touching on seedling distribution. So I want to ask him, is there I have a few questions for him, about 3 questions. Is there a schedule for the distribution of the seedlings to communities? We need to know that. And for those of us who wish to do backyard farming, what kind of assistance we would get, and if possibly there could be training first. And another question is, those farms which are abandoned, they are now exposed. What is the process of farmers who want to farm and they may not have land? You know, some of them may have lost their jobs and they want to get back on the land. What is the process to get back to the abandoned farms, or if lands will be available? That's about it.
Let me just help the PS a little bit here, because you touched some of your questions were policy based as well too. In terms of the land aspect and the availability and abandoned farms, which is something we still have when you look at the abandoned plots of the old days, of the heydays of the banana industry. And we've been toying with ideas like the land bank, but I think even more importantly right now, we're going to have to look at, you know, how best we can get the lands that have been abandoned. Some of the folks are not in Dominica, some of the folks, they can't work the land anymore. And they're young folks, and I'm urging the young folks, because not many of us want to really till the soil. I mean, I was born in the soil, all of us were born in the soil, so we move in with the soil. But we have to get our young people more interested in agriculture and food security and the understanding of it. In terms of the training aspect, yes, the Ministry of Agriculture, and I hail from that region, all of us here came from that area, and I remember the days when we used to have our extension training programs going on, and we were very, very strong on that. So it's something that we will do, and something that we actually do in the Farmer Field School method. There are programs in place for that aspect of it. We have opportunities that exist with the monies we have placed in the aid bank for both for livestock and vegetable crop production. As the Prime Minister mentioned, we will be looking at, you know, a new vision for that, because we have to get into recovery and food security with a new vision in terms of given what Category 5 malaria did to us. So the PS will handle the rest of it, but while we were sitting there together, I got some information about the 30,000 plants we have seedlings at the Portsmouth station, really and truly tomatoes, sweet peppers, lettuce, Chinese cabbage, parsley, celery, and cabbage to start off with. But our consultant here from the FAO with our area of the gardens there, where we used to have the citrus certification program, looking at tolerant root material for our citrus, we'll look at an area there where we can look at a rapid vegetable crop production, and of course salvage what is left of that in terms of moving with our citrus program, because we want to move with what we had and we want to introduce new programs as well too. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. McIntyre has answered your question, except for the little point that says the distribution. We will make available seeds and seedlings to the agricultural stations in the various regions of 7 regions, agricultural regions, and to extension officers. So persons who wish to acquire or receive such plants, they just go to the extension officers or go to the agricultural station in their locality.
Sure.
Hi, Kushina Joseph, Dominica Vibes Radio. My question is for Dr. Thomas. As it relates to the layers that we'll be getting, how will these chicken farmers acquire it? Where can they get it? And as it relates to the other livestock on the island, can we get a status update on that?
In response to your question regarding the point of labels that we spoke about, we are going to begin the procurement of that. What we would attempt to do is to bring in the quantities, because we don't normally bring in point of labels. It's because of the devastation caused by Maria that we would venture into that. So the plan would be to bring in these birds and assist the farmers. It would be one of our assistance program to the farmers. So again, in my presentation, I indicated that we would like to look at which pens are standing, because many, as we have been receiving information from the ground, it appears that most of our pens have been damaged. So we need to go out first and ascertain the amount of space that is available so that we can look at, where can we bring in the birds, who can we give them to, how they will get it to. Of course, the plan is not complete, but, at least this is what we hope to achieve, how we hope to target that program. Regarding the other classes of livestock, we have pigs at the Central Livestock Farm. We have sheep and goat at the Central Livestock Farm. Just prior to Maria, we were in the process of doing an artificial insemination program with rapid multiplication of the small ruminants, sheep and the goat. We continued right after Maria. We continued that process. We were in a process of getting the animals ready for breeding. So we continued that process. And by now, we would have bred all the females that are available, so that in the next couple months we should be able to have young animals that the farmers can get. So that would be for sheep, goats, and pigs and rabbits at the Central Livestock Farm.
We'll take some more questions. Agriculture is important. But if there are no more questions, the aim is to get back to work. But just to stress the point I made earlier on, in terms of agriculture and crops, tree crops, which is down the road. But I mean, seeing that we have some tree crops still left, we should look at pruning them properly and feeding them properly so we can really, flush and we can start getting some fresh fruits back in the country. So the ministry's aim is to, as I said, examine our assets, what we have left, look at the short-term crops, and we spoke about them, all the vegetables, and looking at it from both the vegetable point of view, the protein point of view, and to get our people back in stock. Now, I'm making a point that I want to make sure that we understand that is important, the opportunities that came from Maria. Maria has cleared a lot of land for us. We have a lot of land cleared. Let's not let the land be taken over by weeds and grass. Let us clean the spots up and let us plant our dashin, our tanias, our potatoes, our yams, because we want to get back on that market very soon. And we have an opportunity here. The government will support. The Prime Minister is a farmer. I'm a farmer. Dr. Thomas is a farmer. Angus is a farmer. PS, I'm sure, is a farmer as well too. We are farmers. We understand what's happening. So let's join with us. Plant a seed, plant a plant. One seed to me means quite a few seeds there. That's just figurative language. So let's plant something today. Let's brush the dust off, dry ourselves up, and get into your backyard garden. And I know the sun is hot, but which is good. Plants need sun and water. But we'll still get some rain coming now and again, but let's plant something today. Let's plant something. The government will support. So as we head back to our bases, and we're going to get back to the engine room and prepare the programs of what we have discussed here today. Thank you very much.